Assalamu alaikum. I was actually expecting and hoping to get a chance to meet with the community here and to talk in Arabic about what is going on. Because the Arab community and the Palestinian American community is actually going through a major change. For the first time in its history, it is just beginning to find its voice. It's beginning to have a very little impact. We saw it in Michigan with the uncommitted voice. But we as Palestinian Americans have a lot to learn in order to become effective in this community. We have a lot of problems to solve internally. We have to work on unity. We have to learn the value of finding allies, helping allies, and as we ask them to help us. We have to learn to act locally, not just on the presidential level, once every 4 years. Is it Trump or is it Biden? To be politically involved in this country means you have to be involved daily with what's happening in your city council, in your union, in your church, in your company where you work, in your universities, etc. But it's happening. We are beginning to make an impact as Arab Americans and as Palestinian Americans. We have a long way to go, but we are starting. And we are starting largely thanks to our young people. Because frankly, the older generation is still stuck. They are afraid to be involved politically. Their involvement is largely cultural. We have hafles and we have some dabke and some food, but we don't really get into the heart of the matters. But since we have not just people from the community here, but also a lot of our American and from other countries as well, friends and allies who are committed to the Palestinian cause. And because we have a very pivotal moment after October 7, something happened, something cracked. And it didn't happen out of a vacuum. There was a long accumulation. As Israel became more and more fascist, more and more openly racist, more and more clear about its apartheid nature and its genocidal intent towards our people, October 7th, something new happened. And we found suddenly that we have a lot of support, and we have a lot of sympathy, and we have a lot of ordinary Americans who know very little about the situation, but who can see all of a sudden that they haven't been told the truth. That the narrative, the line that is followed by almost all the corporate media, by almost all the politicians of both parties, by almost all the top echelon, the 1% who control our universities, colleges, institutions, they follow a certain line, a certain narrative, which used to dismiss us completely, entirely. That those people are not telling the truth. And thank God for social media. Thank God for the internet, which allows some of us at least to follow the news on other channels, on Al Jazeera, Al Mayadeen, BBC, some other sources of information other than the standard media, all of a sudden, people are thirsty. They want to know, they want to participate, they want to be involved. They really see for the first time in history, they actually see a genocide taking place in real time on their TV screens every night and getting away with it. This is really something. It didn't happen before. Yeah, there were other genocides, of course, but in faraway places that people didn't know about. Rwanda, maybe. And the big genocide, the Holocaust in Germany, took place in the dark. Nobody knew it was happening while it was happening. Even the Germans claimed we didn't know, until after the war that it was happening. Here it's happening and everybody knows it. And those who are perpetuating it are not even shy. They're openly saying, we want to kill them all. We want destruction. We want annihilation. There are no innocents. We will bomb Gaza into oblivion. We want to flatten it. We want to totally destroy it. And they're not only talking about Hamas, by the way, they're talking about all the Palestinians in Gaza, hint, hint, and in the West Bank maybe also as well, if they can get away with it. So this is happening in real time. How can it possibly be that this is happening and the world is silent? How can it be that it's happening and the church is largely silent? How can it be happening when the other side is getting away with it? Well, one reason, and this is very important to understand, was that there is a certain narrative that was created. The late Edward Said used to say, our problem is that we're not allowed to have our narrative. Our narrative is dismissed. Our narrative doesn't exist. In the past, it used to be the PLO was evil, taboo, you don't talk about them, they don't exist, they're terrorists, it's even illegal to meet or talk with them. Now there's a new narrative. It's Hamas. Hamas is evil, Hamas is diabolical, Hamas needs to be destroyed. Hamas suddenly out of a clear blue sky attacked us in a barbaric way, and therefore it's legitimate to do everything possible to destroy them. Now I want to make it clear, I am no particular apologist for Hamas. I'm not a friend of Hamas. As a political party, as an ideology, I would never vote for them. I don't think that they are necessarily the best thing for the Palestinian people. But the type of demonization that took place on Hamas, which bleeds into demonization of all Palestinians, and justification for the ongoing citizen, that has to be resisted. And let's be frank, we, those of us in the Palestinian community, including the PA, have contributed to that sort of taboo on talking with Hamas or dealing with Hamas, and by extension, even dealing with Gaza. Until October 7, people didn't even want to hear about Gaza, which was being strangulated by siege. And Israel got away with it because we allowed the narrative to be created that Gaza is under Hamas, is somehow hostile, is somehow negative. We don't talk about it. We talk about the West Bank, yes. We talk about Jerusalem, yes. We talk about the Palestinian cause as if Gaza didn't even exist. So we're partially guilty for that. Now we are suffering and paying the consequences. But there's some good news, believe it or not. There are some good news. the world is in fact changing. The narrative is in fact breaking and shifting. We now have an opportunity for the first time to speak directly and to speak in our own voice and to bring our humanity to the front. It's not easy. Don't think it's easy at all. Remember that even the word Palestine, Palestinian, the P word, was for a long time not allowed to be spoken. And if you don't believe it, think about this. How many restaurants making this delicious food that you have now are called the Palestinian restaurants? We call it Middle Eastern restaurant. Holy Land food. Anything other than P, the P word, is still not quite acceptable in America. And we need to break that. We need to break that. We also need to present our case differently. The PLO and the late Yasser Arafat, for all his faults, and there were many, managed to keep the idea of a unified Palestinian nation. We are a people. Because Israel has worked systematically on fragmenting us into at least 5 different groups. There are those who are citizens of the state of Israel, and they call them Israeli Arabs, or the Arabs of the inside, or Arab al-48, the 48 Arabs. They don't even call them Palestinian. And they treat them differently. They're actually the top of the heap, number one. They have more rights, they have more privileges, they can travel around easier, they have a better standard of living. Then number 2 are East Jerusalemites, like myself. We are residents, but not citizens. We have a little more rights, a little less than Israeli Arabs, but we are Jerusalemites and we are basically orphans. There's about 300,000 of us. We don't have a leadership since the death of the late Abu Abid. We really don't have any institutions. We don't have any leader. Our status is very unclear. We're not part of the West Bank, they tell us. And we're not part of Israel because we're not citizen. We're just hanging in the middle. Then there's the West Bankers. West Bankers are living under Israeli occupation continuing now. And they've created for us a strange creature called the Palestinian Authority. I know. Palestinian Authority, at best, they are ineffective and corrupt, at best. At worst, they really are collaborators serving the Israeli occupation. But for a while, they lied to us. They said, this is going to be the basis for your new state. We'll treat them a little nicely. We allow them to fly their little flags. We treat the president as if he was somebody important, special. It's a state in the making. Meanwhile, the settlers are continuing to grab more and more and more of the territories and weaken more of their authority. Then, category number 4 are Gaza. Gaza under siege. Even before October 7, the UN said it's almost unlivable. By 2020, it will be unlivable. But because they're under Hamas, they can do that. For 15, 16 years, they have been under a very tight siege. Nothing can go in, nothing can go out. People, products, anything. They are really, it's a big, huge concentration camp, a big prison, until people broke out of the prison on October 7th. Then there are the diaspora, those who are refugees, whether they're living in Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, or in America. They have no rights at all in Palestine as far as Israel is concerned. Each of these 5 categories of Palestinians are being told, your problems are different than the others. You have to have a separate, different leadership, different laws apply to you, different regulations have to be fulfilled, and different concerns. So we are not even allowed to communicate with each other. And if we happen to marry across these borders, we can't even, the couple cannot even live together. People in Gaza have never seen Jerusalem. A whole generation grew up never seeing Jerusalem, and it's only 2 hours away. People in the West Bank are not allowed to go into Israel except for a permit to work and then come back. Can't stay overnight. Again, Jerusalem is caught between Israel, the West Bank, and definitely cut off from Gaza, and so on and so forth. Palestinians have been oppressed, crushed, marginalized, fragmented at every level. There's only one thing that has kept us together: an element of resilience that defies logic. Somehow we managed to stay together and to keep our hope. I happen to think a lot of it has to do with spiritual elements, and that applies to Muslims as well as Christians. Somehow we feel that there is a God, there is ultimately going to be justice, eventually we will succeed. We have no faith in our leaders. We have no faith in the Arab nation, which has failed us again and again. We have no faith in the Islamic nations, which have also failed to come to our assistance. We have very little faith in the international community. We used to think they didn't know, now they know, but they're doing very little. So what do we have faith in? What is left? We still have faith in God. We still have faith in justice. We still have faith in human rights and in humanity as a whole. You know, I cannot forget the vision every time you see it. A Palestinian woman sitting over the ruins of her house, raising her hands up to God, expecting God to help us. It's not an accident that we see a rise in Islamic, political Islam among Palestinians. One of the attractions of Hamas has been that it used this religious angle to draw people to its particular program. And again, I want to make it clear, I am not here to speak on behalf of or as an apologist for Hamas. I'm here to speak about the Palestinian people and their amazing resilience and their ability to withstand and to maintain their identity. And I'll tell you what I've told Zionist audiences. You have failed, I tell them. With every possible advantage on your side, you have failed to make us disappear. You said you come to a land without a people, for a people without a land. You've said that the old people will die away and the young will forget, and the whole question will be erased. Today's young people in Palestine are more clear about their Palestinian identity than their fathers and their grandfathers ever were. We are Palestinian, and we know we belong to this land, and we will stay on this land, and nothing will move us. Today in Palestine, in all of Palestine, in historic Palestine, there are 7 million non-Jews living there, Palestinians. And they're going nowhere. At the beginning of this current round of fighting after October 7, Israel had a very clear, deliberate plan to push people in Gaza south, 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 and eventually out into the Sinai Peninsula. Right now, about 1.5 million people are crowded in Rafah, and the Israelis would love nothing better than to push them that long final push into the Sinai. I hope I am not speaking ahead of time, but I think that they will fail. I think that Egypt, despite all the offers that are made and all the plans that are made, they will not be able to push 1.5 million people into the Sinai desert. They tried to even empty the northern Gaza, and even that has not worked. People are still there. They're still preventing people from going back up there and shooting them. And the utter suffering of people in Gaza, my heart breaks even when I think about it. To be there and have no food, and to know that right across the border there are hundreds of trucks full of food for you. And you're being told, just cross over and eat. Just cross over and there's food. Cross over and there are tents, and there's a hospital, and there's all sorts of inducements. Just leave Palestine. Forget about Palestine and live. And our people are saying, no, we will not forget. We will live or die in our land. It's hard for us to even imagine what it would take to say those things to people who are deliberately forced into hunger and with no water. The 60,000 pregnant women that don't have any milk, basic sanitary materials, that sometimes have to give birth, never mind without hospitals, but sometimes even C-sections without anesthesia. When I heard about over 1,000 kids who have lost limbs, 1 or 2 limbs, sometimes without anesthesia to cut off somebody's leg who's a child, or their arm. The horror of what is happening cannot be imagined. I can't even dwell on it. And yet, our people survive. And yet, we are resilient. And yet, we may not be too optimistic, but we are full of hope. This is our message. This morning, I had the opportunity to preach in a church, and I said that we are living through Friday. Christ has been arrested, tried, beaten, humiliated, and crucified and put in the grave. His followers are scattered, and our situation, his situation, looked hopeless. This is Friday, but Sunday is coming. The glorious Sunday of Easter, of resurrection, of new life, of right winning over wrong and over evil. The opportunity of a better future for our kids, a better future also for the other side, because the other side is basing its survival on military power. Military power has failed and cannot obtain for them security. The only thing that will give them security is when justice prevails, when equality prevails. When Palestinians have justice, then Israelis can have security, not before. Not before. No amount of weaponry will ever give them the security they need or they desire. They have to come to terms with Palestinians in order to give Palestinians justice so that they can have security. And you know, when we say from the river to the sea, we have every right to say from the river to the sea. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Not free of Jews the way they say, oh, you're trying to kill us all. They're the ones who are trying to kill us. When we say Palestine shall be free, we say free of racism, free of bigotry, free of discrimination, free of Jewish supremacy, free of apartheid, free of one group saying, I will rule over the others and oppress them and suppress them. Free means equality. In Arabic we say, Man sawaka bi nafsihi ma zalamak. If somebody preaches equality, they are not preaching something that is unjust. We are preaching and demanding equality. We are preaching and demanding human rights for everyone. We are preaching and demanding a system that respects the dignity, the religion of each and everyone in the Holy Land. And this is something we have every right to do. We have nothing to be ashamed of. Sometimes we have to know how to bring our message to the world. And our message is a message of peace, but it's a message of justice. It's a message of equality. It's a message of dignity. It's a message of human rights and of international law. This is something we can do, and this is something where we can find a lot of friends and allies in the churches, even in the synagogues, in the halls of power, in Congress, in universities, in schools, in companies. We can and must obtain our freedom and our dignity. So we have nothing to be ashamed of. Yes, we want Palestine to be free, from the river to the sea. It is something we are entitled to, and it's something we need to believe in. Now the road is long and difficult, and it's an ongoing battle. But it's a battle that we fight with the weapons of light, with weapons of dignity and human rights, not with weapons of violence. Because we can't out-violence the Israelis. Can you imagine out-violencing the Israelis? They are the ones who say, we want weapons. We want military might. We want more sophisticated weaponry. We don't want a ceasefire. We want to keep fighting and killing and destroying. Until when? We are the ones who say no. There is a better way. And we invite everybody to join us in a battle. Yes, a battle. A battle for justice and a battle for rights. I've been talking way too long, and I think I should bring this to an end. I am very glad that FOSNA, Friends of Sabeel, North America, they've introduced it already to you, is going to start a chapter in New Jersey, because the battle starts locally. Most of our battles are local. We need to build alliances. We need to get friends. We need to join with the struggle of other people who also believe in dignity. Intersectionality is very important, because we can't ask people to support us in our rights if we're not also willing to support them in their rights. And FOSNA is very glad to be one tool for you to help in this struggle. And I will stop here now and maybe see if there are any questions or if there's somebody who wants to say anything.